The Last Farmer by Giuliano Garelli. Giuliano Garelli was born in Turin in 1967. From 1991 through 93, he was president of the Centro per le Arti di Torino. His previous jobs included working with marketing and industrial communication. Since 2002, he has created pieces dealing with social issues across the world. Giuliano Garelli wants to educate people on the hardships farmers are having to go through on the eastern half of the world compared to the western hemisphere. The film The Last Farmer was made to show the world that farmers across the world are slowly dying due to large corporations buying land from farmers and destroying them with fertilizer to produce mass amounts of profit for exportation. This documentary was made to show the world exactly what farmers in Indonesia, Guatemala, Burkina Faso, and Italia are facing to survive. By living every day in poverty, they are forced to give up land so that industries can produce massive amounts of agriculture and profit, while leaving the true workers out to survive on themselves. Experts believe that globalization only tends to happen in rural areas. With this, farmers are furious that multinational companies are taking the roles of small farmers and they are being displaced from large companies. Thousands of farmers are committing suicide, such as throwing themselves under tractors or simply drinking fertilizer. More than 2.8 million people survive off of $2 a day. Water is regulated by trade on an international level. Every year with pesticides, crops tend to slowly grow less and less. It would take 4 years for crops to return to a natural state, but take 40 years for soil to be naturally nourished again. Agricultural farmers produce food for 70% of the planet's population. Multinational companies are the only concerned with food production. Instead, farmers believe that sustainable farming, food production, and a farmer's welfare is much more important. For instance, in Indonesia, the only concern is to grow rice for export. Farmers argue that being more diverse in the food production could help benefit a farmer than only being able to produce one crop. Instead, they deal with a high production of rice but extremely low income from the product from a surplus. Instead of cultivating food to be sold at local markets to encourage international demand, they export all their goods across the world. The only way of having your own foods is if you are able to produce crops for yourself and surrounding neighbors, or have a wage that allows you to pay for it. The only problem is that these two conditions do not exist for a lot of the poor farmers affected by poverty. Another argument put into place was that the United States helps their farmers when they are in need. For instance, the U.S. provides tractors and actual machinery to produce their share of crops to be sold at high costs. But their only tools are a hoe and the hands in which they carry. My thoughts to this video were actually surprising. By only seeing what farmers are like in the United States, I had a feeling that the other places around the world would be somewhat similar. Instead, poverty has driven them down into a hole where suffering and struggle are now their basic assets to living a day by day.